And Merrill, and we're here with questions of the candidates is our little forum tonight, and we have three contested races for the Union City Council seats. We have three Republicans here tonight, one Democrat. With us joining us is Bob Gentry, District at Large, and he is running against Tito Farias, the Democrat, District candidate at large. We also have with us tonight Nate Conklin, District 3, and Mr. Brandon Elmore for District, Mr. Elmore? District 1, thank you. Mr. Holmes and Mr. Green, the Democratic candidates, were also contacted tonight. Mr. Green could not make it tonight, and Mr. Holmes' information was left on his voicemail. So they were invited to come tonight, so they will not be here. So, but Mr. Farias, the Democrats, will be introduced. You know, he'll be representing the Democrats. So our format tonight is we're going to let each of the candidates introduce themselves, and then we're going to ask 4 questions. Each candidate is going to answer the same question. And we're going to go, there are 4 questions, so each candidate's going to have a different question, but they're all going to answer the same questions. There will be a timer here. They will be allowed 2 minutes to reply. And then at the end, we'll let each candidate give their closing remarks. So if we can, what I'm going to do first is we're going to introduce all the candidates. So right now, Mr. Nate Conklin has the mic. So Nate, go ahead and introduce yourself and tell the public who you are.
Hello, I'm Nate Conklin, born and raised in Union City. Enjoyed my life here. I left Union City briefly. Attended college, and I say that I had to find a wife to trick into moving back here because I'm related to a lot of people. We fortunately just had our first child in July. I love Union City. It is my home. I don't want to go anywhere else. I've had the opportunity to live in other places, and I still find myself calling Union City home. So I want to help take it to the next level. It's a good town, and it's got some options and opportunities that we can help improve it. And I think it's a good place to raise kids. So we've got our first one. If he continues to be a good baby, maybe we'll have a second one, and looking forward to raising a full family here in Union City. I appreciate the time and opportunity Union City's essentially allowed us and K.I.S.S. to bring us in and have these questions. We are looking forward to seeing how this race turns out, and looking forward to see whether I'm elected or not to be a part of this community and continuing its growth and moving forward. Thank you very much.
Well, maybe a minute was too long for the introductions of all the candidates. Over here, we're going to go to candidate Tito Farias, the lone Democrat who's campaigning against Bob Gentry for a council seat at large. Tito.
Hi, I'm Tito Farias. I was born in Winchester and was raised in Saratoga until 2nd grade when I moved to Union City. And so I can still say I was raised in Union City, right? 2nd grade on. I was on the swim team. I was in the band. I worked at Ben Franklin, if anybody remembers Ben Franklin from way back when. I worked at Schiller Globe a couple summers. Right now I work at Applegate. I have a bachelor's degree in political science from Indiana University and a master's degree in foreign service from Georgetown University. With that, I was able to work for about 20 years in international development. So I have been in many countries, lived and worked in many countries. And I specialized in things like community development, civic participation, civic organizations, and good governance. And so many of those things, I was responsible for managing some large projects up to 20 million US dollars. And those things, I think these give me skills and experience that I think can bring me back. I can definitely apply in Union City. I moved back in early 2016 with my family, and a career change that I'm going through and some family issues have meant that I'm staying. And so I am here to bless my hometown. I was blessing many people in many countries. And so I love Union City. This is where people know my name, and this is where I come to bless.
Give the mic over to Mr. Gentry. Bob Gentry running against Tito Farias for district at large.
Hi, I'm Bob Gentry. I came to Union City in 92, 27 years ago. At that time, the Indianapolis Star called Union City a decaying rural example of the Rust Belt. I met a lot of people who didn't buy into that, and a lot of organizations who didn't buy into that. And I joined those people, and I started working as a volunteer. I had the experience of spending like 36 years in federal government. where I worked my way up from a GS5 night clerk for the FBI to a GS15 assistant regional director in the National Labor Relations Board. So I had some experience in being a worker bee and also being an administrator and a management person. So I worked with all of the groups that I joined, Preservation Art Association, and I started going to community, to council meetings and Board of Works, and I worked with those groups to try and make this into the city that it can be. And we've made a lot of progress in the last 12, 15 years, and I want to be part of keeping that going. We're on the cusp of becoming not a decaying city, but we're on the cusp of becoming one of the great small towns. And I like small towns. I was raised in a small town down south of here, and it's where I want to live. You got to remember, this is a good place, and we can make it a highly successful small town. So thank you very much. Appreciate KISS TV giving us this opportunity.
Nice timing, Bob. Right on the button. Mr. Elmore, please.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Brandon Elmore. I'm the Republican candidate for District 1. My story starts basically 10 years ago when I moved to Union City. I'm not a lifelong Union City ite, as other candidates here may be, but I don't think that is a disadvantage. Sometimes you see, you can't see the forest for the trees sometimes. I have maybe a different perspective on things that I think could bring some strengths to the table. In terms of background, I have undergraduate degrees from Indiana University East in Richmond in history as well as behavioral and social sciences. From there, I went on to pursue a master's degree in political science from Ball State University. And I started shortly after the completion of that degree in Muncie, Indiana, at a job that I still hold 13 years later at a company called Navient. Many others may have known it as Sallie Mae. But I work in a position, the title of the position is Lead Implementation Analyst, which I think I draw some skills from that position that I think will lend to some skills that are transferable to the position of a council member, and I can potentially get into that later. But while working at Navient, I also pursued a master's degree in business administration, so I have an MBA. I think a combination of those two degrees, those skill sets, could be vital to combining both the political side from an academic perspective, as well as the business engagement perspective from the educational background in business. So with that said, I think I'm happy to be here, happy to have the opportunity to share my thoughts and feelings about the race. So.
Okay, thank you. We're going to start to actually, each one of you kind of essentially answered the first question, but we're going to give it to Mr. Conklin, and Mr. Elmore suggested we have 4 questions. So I think each candidate will get a different question, and we will answer the same questions, but so they're not answering the same question every time. We're going to give all 4 to a different candidate. So we're going to start with Mr. Conklin. And Nate, what is your background, and how does that qualify you for city council?
Well, I was going to give more background before, but I have to admit I glanced over and saw his sheet and saw that was a question, so I didn't give as much detail. I apologize, but we got to be truthful here.
This is a school, you know.
Oh, I know. That's what I'm calling myself as I see it. So I grew up in Union City. I love this place. I needed some further education. I kind of grew up as a young entrepreneur. Started a couple small business, lawn mowing, and such. Moved to Indianapolis. Attended Butler University. Loved it. Got to do some things that Union City didn't allow. I helped start another small business there, and actually was able to sell that as part of my education. Then was able to study abroad and be a part of some different social clubs at Butler, and some of those things I was able to hold some different positions where a social chair had to throw some functions on a minimal budget and make everybody happy. I helped out on our philanthropic fundraising where we helped raise some money, a lot of money for Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. Then left college, enjoyed myself, moved into a career. I've been a loan officer for going up on 8 years now. Did some other jobs there in between, but now I've been a part of multiple different organizations, big and small, whether it's a small mortgage company out of Indianapolis who has since grown and been a very large one. I was on the ground floor of some different programs that they helped roll out. I became one of the top 10 loan officers in the company. So learning the industry and being able to succeed in it very quickly, I liked the challenge, and I was able to help roll out some new programs that the government has rolled out. So I understand government complications, but also how to interpret and make sure that we're moving forward with our best foot. Since started with a family company where it's K.I.S.S Consulting Group, we remotely monitor pacemakers across the United States. I help manage the back end on that with doing a little bit of sales and marketing. Our home Union City is our home location for our business, and as we continue to grow, you may see some more things happen around the community. Look forward to see what I can do.
Thank you, Mr. Conklin. And the next question will be, need this microphone, the next question will be to candidate Frias. Mr. Frias, what is your opinion? There's been a lot of issue taken about rental inspections and rental ordinances and those things. What is your opinion about the city passing a rental ordinance for rental inspection?
Very good question. Thank you for asking that, because that is something that has come up as I go around speaking to different people. I think there are two views, and I think we can perfectly reconcile them. One is that it is an overburden to homeowners to pass an ordinance that requires immediate inspections of homes as soon as a renter leaves. Renters sometimes make damages in the home, and some homeowners, they need a little more time to make repairs, and take some of those repairs are costly, and so I hear them saying, hey, wish they could take this into consideration. The inspection, they're saying they should be done by a certified inspector that knows how to do this, is professional in that field. I personally stand for citizen participation, and I think we should bend over backwards anytime we're trying to pass an ordinance to talk to the people who would be most affected by the ordinance. By all means, we are all concerned about making our homes look nicer. We want to attract large investors. We want to attract businesses to Union City. If the homes are all dilapidated, sorry, that's not really going to happen. If we're finding Union City, Indiana, and the Ohio side is dilapidated, people are going to be concerned. They may not invest here. So I think it's very important to have an ordinance like that, but it could have been softened a little bit if they had their way. Had their viewpoint taken into consideration. It could be a little softer and more tolerable for them, and be beneficial for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Tito. The next question will go to Mr. Gentry. Mr. Gentry, what do you want to achieve, or what is your vision as a new council member for Union City?
Yeah, okay, that's I can sort of reiterate. I want to keep the ball rolling. We've made a lot of progress in the last several years. What I want to see is the rejuvenation of our downtown area. I think without a vibrant downtown that people want to visit and to spend their money, spend their time, we're just not going to attract new residents and new business. We've got to support the business we have and help them expand. The second thing that I want to hopefully help accomplish, and we're not going to do any of this on our own. This is a cooperative effort, but I want to help cause an improvement in our stock of housing. We talked about rental housing, but there's owner-occupied homes here that need work, and we need to come up with ways of helping. A lot of those folks just don't have the wherewithal to make some major repairs. There's grant money out there. Monty Poling, our city manager, was able to get grants in the past. We should continue to get those grants to help those people. There's tax abatements for people who are willing to spend money and increase the value of their homes. We need to push that sort of thing. And thirdly, I've been involved in the park almost since the day I came here, and we need to keep on our park situation. We need to make Harder Park even better than it is, and it's a great park now. Don't make any mistakes. This is one of the finest parks in this whole region, but we can make it better even, and we can make Artisan Crossing into what it was designed to be, as a truly great venue for everybody, not just a handful, but everybody. So those are the things that I want to help accomplish.
Thank you. If you'll pass the mic to Mr. Elmore. Mr. Elmore, many employers are seeking employees to fill jobs here locally. What are your ideas to attract people to fill these jobs?
That's an interesting question, and I had
Mike.
three kind of.
There you go.
Thank you, sorry. I had three kind of things that I wanted to address in terms of things that we can do to attract employers. One would be, the blight situation around town. I mean, we've talked a lot about that. And it goes back to something that I read probably 15 years ago in a book by Malcolm Gladwell called The Broken Windows Theory, where if you don't fix things around town, if you don't address situations, it reflects poorly on the environment and the culture in which you're trying to create, and it's difficult to attract employers that you're wanting to bring around if you're trying to attract a manufacturing facility or a startup facility of some sort, whether that's technology, and you have to address that. The other thing is you have to have a workforce that's ready to work, and if to attract jobs that are going to pay a living wage. And there are jobs here that do that, but there are other jobs that aren't intended to be a living wage job that people attempt to do that on. And I'm not pointing anybody out and any employers out, but there are folks that you need to step up to the plate and take responsibility for their own actions. And there are things that we as a council would help facilitate that, I think. And then the last thing that I think, we have a talented pool of kids that go off to school every year, and we need to attract those kids to come back once they graduate from college. I would call it a brain drain. We need to address that.
Time's up, Mr. Elmore. Thank you. We'll go back to Mr. Conklin. Mr. Conklin, this question is directed at you. What do you want to achieve, or what is your vision as a new council member for Union City?
I have a lot of thoughts on that. To put it most simply, we need more community involvement. I think between the Arts Festival and the Artisan Crossing, we've seen a lot of people come out and enjoying that venue. I know that there's been disc golf tournaments. I think we can get people more involved. I don't know how many people are watching tonight. I don't know how many people are watching tonight.
Mic's not working? Did we lose our mic? There, try that.
Maybe I pushed the button. Sorry about that. To reiterate, basically, I think we need people involved. You live here. You want to be here. Let's help neighbors. Let's come out and support local school events. Let's support local artists. Let's support small business. Until we start thinking as a community, we're not going to achieve the greater good, and let's address it head on. I want to be here. I want other people to be here. And if you want to be here, come to a council meeting. Ask people questions. Come out and support the Arts Festival. Come out and support the Artisan Crossing, whether it's just a band that you've never heard of and you have nothing to do on a Friday night, or it's a Friday and you're like, you know what, there's a football game. Let's go do that. Talk to people. Unfortunately, in today's world, I can't believe I'm saying this, everybody's on their phones. And my generation started with this problem. When I was in high school and getting soon out, we had the development of cell phones, and it's distracted us from sitting here and talking to Brian Merrill or Tito or Bob or Brandon. Whether we have a conversation, we put our head down in our phone and don't have the conversation. Unfortunately, it's a global change, and I think we have to make it on a local level of let's get people involved. What was the question again, real fast?
What do you
Vision,
wanna
new
achieve?
council member. I want to see Union City grow and prosper.
5 seconds.
I think we get people involved locally, it's going to prosper and it's going to turn into great things. People will come to council meetings, people will volunteer for events, people will continue to grow the community on its own and make sure things continue to move forward.
Thank you, candidate Conklin. This one goes to Mr. Frias. This was asked by Mr. Elmore, but many employers are seeking employees to fill jobs here locally. What are your ideas to attract people to fill these jobs, Tito?
To attract people to fill the jobs that exist, I'm going to go with as well to attract jobs, right? I mentioned, as I alluded to earlier, we're talking about we want to attract investment. I have a friend who married a vice president of a consumer service provider, a firm that provides customer service, call-in type thing services for large companies. They came to Union City and she said, no, I don't know all the reasons, but I do think the housing would be awesome. We want a vibrant community. We want, the Artisan Park is a fabulous thing. Definitely want to continue with that. Guys, I don't know if any of you have seen the excitement that has developed in the Union City News Facebook page. Someone asked, the Heritage Days, people shared, or the person that manages that page shared something from Heritage Days, and people started, giving their opinions. There is so much excitement about Heritage Days. It's something that was fabulous in Union City that attracted people from far away. If you think of cities like Minster, Ohio, that Oktoberfest, that attracts people from all over the country. We could do something similar. We could go back to that. We need cooperation between both sides of the state line. So things like that. I think youth, the drug problem, we need to tackle that head on. Definitely boost security a little bit. We have a pretty good there, but I think we could do even better, and provide more opportunities for youth. If youth have things to do, if they're involved, if they're informed, then they're less not sitting around trying to figure out what to do and get in trouble.
Thank you, Tito. Next one for Mr. Gentry. Mr. Gentry, what is your opinion, sir, about the city passing the rental ordinance and for rental inspections?
Well, I'm obviously very much in favor of the rental ordinance, since I was one of the people researching rental ordinances around the state and the country, and giving them to the council and to the city manager and to the mayor. And I spent a lot of time asking the attorney for the city, when are you going to have that thing ready? That ordinance was discussed and numerous times. There was the council asked rental owners to form a committee and give their input as to how what they saw in this ordinance that was good, what was bad. The final ordinance that came out was sort of an amalgamation of what the input they got from the owners, from people who had lived in rental housing and had some problems, and based on rental ordinances that had existed other places. This ordinance was intended to make better housing available for everyone. Just because you're poor, you don't have to live in a slum. And that we've got low-income people that are striving to get ahead, and when they get sloughed off into inadequate housing, it doesn't do them any good, and it certainly doesn't do the community any good. And the rental housing ordinance was intended and is being operated to make better housing available to everyone, not just a few. So that's where I come from on housing. Can it be improved? Sure. There isn't anything around that can't be improved, and people need to come forward and say, hey, we need to change here.
Thank you, Bob. Mr. Elmore, what do you want to achieve, or what is your vision as a new council member of Union City?
Well, I think I kind of answered a portion of that with my
Yeah,
first
some
question.
of these questions are very similar in the answers, but
Yeah. So I mean, I hit on the brain drain. I started to talk about that a little bit at the very end of my question. So we have college kids that are very talented, or kids from our high school here that are very talented. They go off to school, and we want to attract them back into the community. It's a culture that we have to create here. One where they have a job that they can come to that would warrant their salary for a college graduate. The things that additionally that I talked about were blight and jobs. Blight is also another situation where we want to take care of the property. We want homeowners to have that sense of ownership, that pride in ownership is what I'm trying to say. And then jobs. One of the pet projects that I would like to see move forward here is kind of a transition there's a transition in the economy where there are more technological jobs that are out there that are remote based, that you can do working from home or something like that. I want to see what we can do as a council to potentially work with employers to attract them to our community. Maybe setting up a training facility where they initially have a training class where individuals could, like those college graduates that I was talking about that would be attracted back to our community and instead of going elsewhere. That would be a potential job that they could fall into within our community and then go live here instead of looking elsewhere. And it's, again, I think it's something that we could potentially look to and facilitate as a city government and as a council. I think that could be something that could be very vibrant and promising, potentially.
thank you, Mr. Elmore. And we'll close this question out. Everybody's answered this, but Mr. Conklin. So Nate, what do you want to achieve, and what is your vision as a new council member for Union City?
I think I answered that the last time.
Did you? Okay, that's fine. I'm going by notes here. Let's go this way. What's your opinion about the city passing the rental inspection then, the rental ordinance?
Yeah. To put it bluntly, sorry, it's how I hold it. I apologize. Reiterate this. I've helped work on my parents' rentals since I was about 12 years old. And essentially, I understand there's a lot of hard work that goes into it. I appreciate it when people take care of their own home. I also, being a homeowner in town, I'm understanding. I mean, sometimes things can get overwhelming. I've helped resolve some of the issues that have been found on rental inspections on some of our properties, as well as some other people's properties that they've asked my opinion on. And the overall goal, in my opinion, is to improve our community, the outlook. Somebody over here, let's say that we're a row of houses, and each one of us lives in one house. Well, if all of us took care of our house, we'd all be very happy to live in our neighborhood. But if, let's just say, for argument's sake, Brian Merrill's house was terrible, had trash in the front yard, had teenagers lurking around. The teenagers are fine. You're welcome in town anytime. If there was furniture in the yard, dilapidated a couch,
So
me as a neighbor, I don't want to look at that. And honestly, in my opinion, that's disrespectful for a neighbor to have to take care and look at that. And also, on the flip side, if he's not taking care of it, he doesn't have the ownership in it, he may not care as much. So essentially, I believe the ordinance was written to help facilitate the owner of the property to take care of where potentially Mr. Merrill is renting that home. They need to take care of and make sure that property is being taken care of, and there's not holes in the roof. There's not holes in the floor where somebody can fall through. Essentially, people need to live with clean water, a roof over their head, and if they're paying for it, they need to make sure that it's a good, suitable condition. If it's not a suitable condition and it's not taken care of, in my opinion, that's disrespectful to the person paying rent.
Thank you, Nate. On? Okay. Next question, we'll close out this one for Tito. My mistake, Mr. Conklin, because you already answered that. But Tito Farias, what do you want to achieve, or what is your vision as a new council member of Union City?
Well, I think a couple of things that come to mind are that I would like to see more transparency. What does that mean? I don't think there's a problem. If there are, I don't know it. But not everybody's happy about how some things are going. And so I just think that if there could be audits, if there could be more information available as to how city resources are being used and invested, just that information. Yes, it comes out in the News Gazette many times. Yes, it's sometimes mentioned in the city council meetings, but people still ask questions. There needs to be a place where people can go and easily access all of this information. I think I would like to see more citizen participation. I agree with Nate on that. Just one observation, many of the city council meetings don't have a lot of debate. I see roll call votes, and they're all yes. And so the question is, are elected officials really representing the interests of the citizens of Union City? And so I'd like to see a little more debate in that. I understand, I was told by somebody that it used to be that the Board of Public Works, well, the Board of Public Works apparently is where more of the debate happens. And those used to be in the evenings. Maybe Bob can correct me. This is, third-hand information. I don't need more information on this. But I'm told that the Board of Public Works now happen at 1 p.m. on Mondays. If they could be moved to a time where workers and other people, citizens can participate, that would be fantastic. And also, I think there could be a little more equity. I understand that development funds have been used focused to perhaps one individual. And I know that individual is more than deserving. That individual maybe is the one who is coming up with awesome proposals to create lots of jobs. But just people feel like that should be distributed more equitably.
Thank you, Tito. Mr. Gentry, I believe and forgive me, I don't think I've asked you this question yet, but many employers are seeking employees to fill jobs here locally. What are your ideas to attract people to fill these jobs?
Well, the first thing we have to do is, is it now it's working? Okay. First thing we have to do is make sure we have a trained workforce. The job demands today are so much different than they were even 20 years ago or 10 years ago. And we need to work harder at job training, help present employers to retrain where necessary and give advanced training to their employees. We need to encourage a job training center here in Union City, and I think that will happen with the development of the Backstay building. I've been told that it will, and if I'm on the council, you can be damn sure I'll see to it that it does happen, because we need that. We can't rely on these $10 an hour jobs where a guy does the same repetitive thing all day long. Those jobs are rapidly disappearing and being replaced with the new AI. So we have to make a greater effort to train not just young people, but our existing workforce to retrain. And the city needs to take an active role in that, and that's one of my goals. Once we become known as a place where you can go and get a good job and maybe get retrained, we'll attract more and better workers. There are jobs available in Union City and Randolph County right now, but we don't have people who are capable of filling those jobs. It's not just question of being able to pee in a cup. We all know that's a problem, but it's once they pass that, they don't have the skills always. So the city needs to work with the county and the state and the feds to get this program going.
Thank you, Mr. Gentry. Mr. Elmore, we'll close out this question because you're the last one to answer, but the three candidates have already given their response. What is your opinion, sir, about the city passing the rental ordinance for rental inspection?
Well, this is a very polarizing issue.
Indeed.
It is. And I've sat on both sides of the fence on this particular issue. I personally own rental property, and I probably was one of the first ones to have a rental inspection done on my property. And it was honestly a little embarrassing when it came back with a couple of violations on that property, and because I felt like I was doing a good job. But then I had kind of a mind shift on how I thought about and how I felt about the process and the true purpose and intent behind it. If you really, as an owner, think about the inspection program, it's a process where another set of eyes are actually on your property. If anything, it's helping you maintain the property in a more orderly fashion. It's helping you improve the value of your home. So I think that's oftentimes lost in this. That sometimes there's a little in it for you. I mean, you hate to have to spend the money on some stuff that you may not have otherwise thought that you were going to have to do. So there's that kind of upfront hit. But it is, I think, in the grand scheme of things, it's a very good program. It's a good process that, again, it took some time for me to get around, my head around. But again, it's the type of thing too that tenants, from a tenant's perspective, they are owed a certain level of expectation of housing, what they should expect when they go into a rental property for their money. And if there are certain code violations that could be detrimental to the property and their safety and their health, those are things that should be addressed. And those were, because they were accepting of the fact that they may not have been able to get into other more, other types of housing, they shouldn't be at a detriment. So.
Thank you. And as we close out this question here to Mr. Conklin, I am going to make an amendment. Mr. Conklin, start out about the background and how does that qualify for you for Union City Council. I think in the closing remarks, that's going. I don't want to be redundant. So you guys repeat yourself. So we're going to wait and have you guys answer that in your closing remarks because I think it's a lot of the same thing. You're going to talk about your background. You're going to talk about what qualifies you for the City Council. So we'll get to this last question to Nate, and then we'll go into that. Mr. Conklin, make sure that mic's on, Nate. Again, you are the youngest person here, so you bring a fresh perspective on some ideas that you might have. Many employers that are seeking employees to fill jobs here locally. In your opinion, Mr. Conklin, what are your ideas to attract people to fill these jobs?
There's a lot of things that can happen. Honestly, I'm not the youngest. We've got 3 young 8th grade high schoolers that actually I want to hear their opinion. I think with the communication, and I'm going to round all these out in one. I think we need to involve some of our high schoolers and get them involved with our council meetings to bring them in, get their opinion on if they're going to leave, if they want to stay, what they want to do. Essentially, if we find out what kids want today, they want to leave town, okay, leave town. But let's find out why. They want something bigger. They want something nicer. Well, we can make some things happen in town. Ultimately, employers are hiring. There's a lot of companies in Union City right now hiring. Unfortunately, they don't always pay the greatest. And they need to figure out some of the gaps here. Essentially, I think if you build your worth and you're worth a certain dollar amount and you can provide extra expertise and skills, you provide value to that company, you would potentially get paid more. I'll be honest, I'm not running for council on those people's companies. I'm here to help grow the existing population by housing and then also attracting new companies. I know the existing companies, I appreciate it. I've worked at several of the companies in town and been a part of and helped out and grown up with kids who their parents either work there or they themselves work there. Basically, work, share your opinion with people, be a part of your community, and pay your pay your dues. Essentially, things will then happen for you. In my experience, I've gone a little bit more out on the venturous side, and some of my ventures have been prosperous, and unfortunately, that's been able to keep me here in Union City. Now I'm in Union City. I want to help others. We're essentially, as a company, in the near future, we're looking to add a location in Union City, which will then be hiring some more. So if we can get entrepreneurs' mindset in town to continue to grow, we're going to organically grow and have more jobs available, and then you'll be paid what you're worth.
Thank you. That's a great idea, Mr. Conklin. And maybe after the election, something that would be possibly pursued is get the elected officials to come to the high school and ask the kids questions, or take the kids' questions, field questions. I think get them all. That's a good idea. In rounding out, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to ask you guys the same question. This is essentially at the end as what I said in the closing remarks. We'll go to Tito, who is running against Mr. Gentry for district at large. Tito is the Democratic candidate. Mr. Gentry is the Republican candidate. He will answer after Tito, excuse me. So Tito, again, what is your background and how does that qualify you for city council? Just tell them why they should vote for you. I'm going to combine that one to the closing remarks.
Okay. I started my career as a budget analyst at the U.S. Department of Education in Washington, D.C. And so it's about the whole legislative process and what the Congress, right, in this case would be City Council, wants to spend the money on. That was proposed, obviously, by the president. In this case would be the mayor. And boy, budget has been a big thing in my whole career. Checking how the budget is going, the tracking, actually formulating budgets to resolve problems, to resolve the issues, to manage programs, but also to identify problems. So I'm going to have a key eye on that budget. And one thing I saw in Congo, I don't know if that contributes to us, is citizen participation in the budget development process. What if citizens could participate in exactly what we should be spending our money on? I think that would be fantastic. So to answer the question, I have managed budgets up to $20 million with transparent use of resources, vetting, bidding processes for large expenditures and things like that. I have managed audits. I have managed teams of people. I have mobilized up to $2.8 million US in grant funds, U.S. government grant funds overseas for various types of programming involving citizen participation in decision making, training, advocacy, lobbying. All of these things is about democratic processes. I love that, and so I want to bring that to Union City.
Thank you, Tina. If you give the microphone to Mr. Gentry. And again, Mr. Gentry, again, some of this was answered in the opening remarks, but what is your background, again, if you will, and how does that qualify you for Union City Council, and tell them why they should vote for you?
Okay, that's fair enough. You haven't started the clock yet, but anyway, yeah, I started working when I was 12 years old. My Social Security card goes back into the dark ages. It may be printed on a stone. I don't know. But the fact is, I've worked all through high school, grade school, high school, in the retail business. So I then worked for the FBI as a night clerk so I could go to college because my dad was a cop, and there ain't no way he was going to put me through college. So I worked for the Bureau probably for, I guess, about 3 years, and I got my draft notice. And I didn't want to be a ground pounder, so I enlisted in the Military Police Corps. And I spent the next almost 7 years in the Military Police Corps and in Army Intelligence. Started out as a E1 recruit and wound up as a Chief Warrant Officer. I learned how to investigate, how to analyze. I received a really excellent education in the military. I probably have more than 4 years of college. I couldn't have to put them all in one place. But after going through the investigative stages, I worked for the Labor Board and finally retired there as a 15. I had become a supervisor and a manager in order to put my kids through college. Actually, I enjoyed the investigating part. When I came to Union City, those skills that I had picked up helped me in working as a volunteer and in participating in government activities. I've attended council meetings religiously, Board of Works meetings, and by the way, that's that I understand Tito's problem with that, and it's something we'll need to discuss. But this is well, and the time is up. But
that's okay. Go ahead.
Yeah.
If you had a closing remark on that.
Yeah, I do have a closing remark. I would appreciate your vote. I think that I have served the community. I've been on the Board of Works. I wrote the first park 5-year plan. I put it together and drafted it. It was based on the work of a very active and hardworking committee. I was just a guy that drafted it, but I'm on the redevelopment commission, have been for the last 11 years. I know what's going on in the community, and it's a I know how to get things done, and I've proven that, and I'd like to continue working. Even if Tito wins, I'm still going to be the guy in the back row asking questions. So, and I'm quite sure that if I win, Tito's going to be in the back row asking me questions. So that's not. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gentry. Mr. Brandon Elmore, District 1, correct? Running against Mr. George Green, the Democrat. Mr. Elmore, again, we've heard a little bit in your opening statement, but what is your background? Again, how does that qualify you for City Council, and why should they vote for you?
Thank you. Yeah, so in my opening remarks, I'd mentioned the unique combination of my educational background, my academic background with a master's degree in political science and a master's degree in business administration. I think, again, my study of political systems, political philosophy, I'll never forget the idea or the thought that this is a representative vote if I were on council, that I'm representing people, that it's not my vote, that opinions are always taken into account and self-interest is always set aside. That's something that, again, it goes to the core of me, and I want the voters out there to understand that and know that this is representative politics at its best. I mean, it's grassroots. It's on the ground, and with such a small community, we can do that and understand the differences and an understanding of who we're representing much better so than a large district or a large state or at the federal level. And then I talked a little bit about my position. So currently, I'm a lead implementation analyst, and what that position is, briefly, I work on a computer or business system, and I'm provided with issues that I have to go and research, and I have to put in place solutions to those problems and enhancements to the system. I think those skills actually go a long way in a position like this, because oftentimes with politics, people talk a lot. They complain, but nothing ever really gets done sometimes. And in my position, I'm graded, I'm evaluated on getting things done, implementing things, seeing things through, and that I think again lends to this position very well.
Thank you very much. And we started with Mr. Conklin. We're going to end with Mr. Conklin. And again, reiterate, Nate, tell us a little bit about your background and speak to the audience and tell them why they should vote for you.
I'm going to keep it under 2 minutes because I'm kind of getting bonus time here. We made that change to the first question. I don't want to seem unfair. I love Union City. I want to live here my whole life. I don't want to leave. I want as many people to stay. I want to see our community grow. I want to see some of the houses that need torn down. I want to see some additional houses built for people that are outgrowing their home and don't have a need, or don't have the needed home and that are moving. I want to help people get into homes. I want to help our community grow, get some more jobs in the area, and then add some more activities. Essentially, reaching out and asking any questions is always welcome to me, whether it's Facebook, stop by. I'm at most council meetings, and I'll definitely be at the majority of them throughout the rest of the year. Feel free to stop afterwards, ask some questions, find out what I'm really about, have a conversation. Don't just take the panel. The panel's great. It gives all of us a point of view, but getting to know somebody and understanding what they're really about is what it's going to be key and what it's all about. You want to know me? Come talk. Let's discuss it a little bit more in depth, and let's see how we can work together to get our community to the next level. Vote Nathan Conklin, District 3. Thanks.
Thank you, Nate. And that ends this questions for the candidates. One thing that I think everybody will come away with, that we have some anxious folks up here that want to do good for the community, Republican or Democrat. I think we'll all work together, whoever's going to win, and try to make Union City and the community a better place to live in. So you folks out there in voter land, just vote when the election comes up and make your voice heard. These are the representatives that are in the contested races that want to make a difference in our community. I think we have, in listening, in knowing most of these folks, Mr. Elmore's new to me, but I think we have the brain power up here to achieve just that. We got different demographics and different backgrounds, but I think they all can agree that they all want to work together to make Union City a community that's great to live in, that's safe to live in, and will be prosperous for years to come. Thank you all for tuning in. We'll be posting this up on YouTube for those that will miss it. You can share it all on your social media. So thanks a lot, candidates. Thank you for your time. And don't forget to go out and vote for your candidate for City Council. Thank you and good evening.